Welcome to this deep dive. Today, we're taking on a mission that, well, it feels incredibly relevant to anyone just trying to navigate the current tech landscape.
Oh, absolutely. It's pretty wild out there right now.
It really is. So, we're unpacking a fascinating translated piece of source material today. It was originally titled Yapishtalan Metin. And our specific goal here is to answer a question that is, almost certainly lingering in the back of your mind right now.
Right, the big one.
Yeah, the big one. Why are there so many new AI models coming out, like, every single week?
I mean, it is the defining question of the industry right now, isn't it?
Mm.
We are witnessing this just unprecedented volume of releases,
Hmm.
and it's fundamentally reshaping how we interact with information
Hmm.
on a really basic level.
Yeah, let's put this in perspective for you, the listener. Just imagine waking up tomorrow morning, you grab your coffee, you check your phone, only to discover that three brand new streaming services have just launched overnight.
Oh man, that sounds exhausting.
Right. And they all demand your attention. They all claim to have, the absolute best shows. And they all want you to learn a completely new interface.
Which is the worst part, honestly.
Exactly. And then the next day, two more launch. The day after that, another four. I mean, you would be completely overwhelmed. The sheer fatigue of trying to keep up would just make you want to throw your hands in the air and cancel everything.
Yeah, and that fatigue is a very real phenomenon.
Yeah.
When it comes to the current artificial intelligence landscape, the source material actually has a term for this.
Oh, what do they call it?
They explicitly define it as model inflation.
Model inflation. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Right, because we're seeing these constant drops from giant tech companies and
Sure.
then massive pushes from the open source community, plus all of these niche models from startups just seemingly appearing out of nowhere.
Just popping up everywhere.
Exactly. And it creates a tremendous amount of noise for the end user, just total information overload.
Okay, let's unpack this. Is this just chaotic tech capitalism, or is there a grander design here? Because, I mean, on the surface, it really feels like a bubble.
It does look like one, yeah.
Right. It feels like this unsustainable race where everyone is just, I don't know, trying to grab market share before the music stops.
Well, it's interesting because the source material takes a completely different angle on this.
Yeah.
It argues that this model inflation, despite being, incredibly frustrating for us to actually track, is actually an evolutionary necessity.
Wait, really? An evolutionary necessity?
Yeah. If you look at biological diversity on Earth, ecosystems only survive and thrive because they are diverse.
Okay, but I want to challenge that framing right out of the gate because, I mean, biological evolution takes millions of years to iterate and find balance, right?
Sure, yeah.
We are talking about tech companies brute forcing hundreds of models into the market in a matter of like months. That doesn't really feel like a natural ecosystem to me. It feels like an arms race.
Okay, that's a fair point. It is an accelerated process, certainly, but the structural mechanism, the underlying logic is the same. The biological imperative for diversity is really about avoiding single points of failure.
Ah, okay. I see where you're going.
Right. So in nature, if you only have, say, one type of plant dominating an entire environment, a single specialized pathogen can just wipe out the entire biosphere.
Gone.
Exactly. And the source argues we must view the AI landscape through that exact same lens. Without this wild, rapid diversification, market gravity will inevitably just pull us toward one single dominant AI.
And that's bad because...
Well, a solitary model dominating the globe means humanity's entire body of knowledge is forced through a single solitary filter.
A single filter for all human knowledge. Okay, yeah. I see where the existential threat comes in there.
It's massive.
But let me play devil's advocate for a second here.
Sure, go for it.
We are already somewhat used to digital monopolies, right? Like, we all know what a search engine monopoly looks like. And while people complain about ranking algorithms and SEO and all that, society hasn't completely collapsed.
True. Not yet, anyway.
Right. So isn't a single highly optimized AI just, I don't know, the next iteration of a highly optimized search engine?
Well, that assumes the mechanics of search and the mechanics of generative models are the same, which they aren't. Not at all.
Okay, how so?
Think about it. A search engine is ultimately just an index. It points you to a destination.
Hmm?
You still have to click the link. You have to look at the publisher, evaluate their credibility, check the date.
You do the work, basically.
Exactly. You synthesize the information yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You maintain agency over the epistemological process, which is just a fancy way of saying you control how you arrive at the truth.
Okay, yeah, that is a massive distinction. Because a foundation model, it doesn't just point you to sources.
No, it reads them for you.
Right. It digests them, it strips away all that metadata you just mentioned, and then it just confidently synthesizes an answer for you. It acts as the final authority.
Yes.
So if we only have one system doing that globally, it is literally like having one teacher for the entire planet. And like that teacher is writing the only textbook any of us are allowed to read.
What's fascinating here is how the underlying mechanics of these models make that single textbook scenario so incredibly dangerous.
Tell me more about that.
Well, let's look at how they actually generate text. They aren't looking up facts in a database like a search engine does. They are predicting the next word based on billions of mathematical weights or parameters that were established during their training.
Right, the training data.
Yeah, and those weights, they represent a specific baked-in perspective on the world.
And those parameters are shaped by the training data, which is data created, selected, and categorized by, well, flawed humans.
Precisely the point the source material emphasizes. No model is perfectly objective, none of them. So if a singular AI holds a monopoly, whatever biases exist in its parametric memory, whether they're political, historical, or just a bias toward a really specific style of deductive reasoning suddenly, that becomes the undisputed global standard.
Wow, that's terrifying.
It is. It has the power to invisibly manipulate the education and decision-making mechanisms of an entire generation. And it can do that simply because there is no competing model to offer any friction.
Friction, yeah, friction is the key word there. Because if you have 50 different models analyzing a historical event, you're going to get 50 slightly different summaries, right?
Exactly.
And that friction forces you, the human, to actually cross-reference and think critically. It keeps the human in the loop.
It absolutely does.
But let's dig into the how of that bias, because I don't want to just talk about deliberate manipulation. The source actually moves from deliberate manipulation to the unintentional threat of sheer ignorance, specifically regarding culture.
Yeah, the cultural blind spot is arguably the most pervasive threat of a monopoly.
Really, more than political bias.
Well, think about it. An AI model trained predominantly in Silicon Valley, built by Western engineers, it inherently lacks the cultural context to grasp the nuances of, say, an Anatolian farmer or a Far East artisan.
Right. Their lived experience is completely different.
Exactly. The worldview of a California tech hub is highly specific. It's not the universal human baseline, no matter how much they might want it to be.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. I want to try to visualize this mechanical failure for you, the listener.
Oh, I love a good visualization.
Right. So imagine taking a high-powered Wall Street investment banker, someone whose entire life is built around, quantitative optimization and profit margins, and you just drop them into a rural village to judge a traditional baking contest.
Oh, wow. A purely quantitative approach to a highly qualitative tradition. That's a disaster waiting to happen.
Yes, exactly. I mean, the banker could calculate the exact cost of the flour, right? They could figure out the thermal efficiency of the wood-fired oven, and they'd probably try to optimize the supply chain for the yeast.
They're operating at peak intelligence, basically.
Right, peak intelligence. But they have absolutely no context for the soul of the recipe. They don't know that the bread is shaped a certain way to honor a local harvest festival, or that the specific blend of spices was passed down just to survive really harsh winters.
Yeah, it's just dated to them.
Exactly. They process the data flawlessly but completely miss the culture.
And if you apply that to AI, if you ask a universally deployed Silicon Valley-trained AI to write a poem about grief in the style of Turkish folk literature, or to mediate a community dispute based on unwritten traditions in Southeast Asia.
It's just going to use that banker's logic.
Exactly. It applies that same sterile, optimized logic. It misses the soul of the recipe because it literally does not have the mathematical parameters to recognize it.
So the source material specifically highlights the necessity of local models to combat this, right? I think it mentions specialized models built for the Turkish language as an essential countermeasure.
Yes, it does.
But let's look at why a global model struggles with that in the first place. Because it comes down to tokenization, doesn't it?
Yeah, tokenization is a perfect example of the structural bias we're talking about here. So when an AI processes text, it chops words up into smaller pieces, and these are called tokens.
Okay.
Now, the systems developed in the U.S. are highly, highly optimized for English.
So an English word might equal one token, meaning the AI can process it really efficiently.
Precisely. But Turkish is an agglutinative language.
Right. meaning you can build entire complex sentences just by adding suffixes to a single root word.
Exactly. And a standard Western-built tokenizer looks at that Turkish word and just kind of panics. It ends up chopping a single Turkish concept into 6 or 7 different tokens.
Wow. So it's breaking it into tiny pieces.
Yeah, which means the model has to work significantly harder, it has to use way more compute, and it fundamentally struggles to maintain the semantic flow of the non-English language.
That is wild.
It's a structural disadvantage built into the very foundation of the architecture. And that is before we even touch on RLHF.
Oh, RLHF, reinforcement learning from human feedback.
That's the one.
Yeah, this is the training phase where human raters actually grade the AI's answers to teach it how to behave, right? Like telling a dog it's a good boy.
Exactly, the mechanism. But here's the catch. If the thousands of human raters shaping the model's behavior are predominantly Western tech workers, the AI learns to prioritize their specific socioeconomic values. It learns their specific definition of polite, their definition of helpful, and their boundaries for what is considered controversial.
It's just mirroring them.
Right. And again, it isn't malicious. The engineers aren't trying to be evil. It's just statistical gravity.
Which brings us to a really heavy term the source uses, cultural imperialism.
Yeah, it's a strong phrase.
It is a heavy phrase, but based on what you're saying, it's mechanically accurate. If a dominant foreign AI becomes the primary way a culture interacts with knowledge, it exerts this kind of linguistic gravity.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you have to realize that language is not just a communication tool. It is the operating system of a culture.
Oh, I like that. The operating system of a culture.
Yeah, it dictates how a community understands time, how they view relationships, and hierarchy. Everything.
So if the monolithic AI only understands your culture when you explain it in a very Western Americanized format, you will eventually just start communicating in a Western Americanized format just to get the machine to work for you.
Exactly.
You literally flatten your own culture just to make it machine readable.
And you are describing the erosion of cognitive diversity. This is why local models, built by local developers, trained on local data sets with local tokenizers, are so crucial. They prevent this flattening.
They're a shield.
Yes, they ensure that the AI revolution doesn't just blanket the globe in a single homogeneous cultural export.
So we need the Anatolian AI. We need the Japanese artisan AI. We need the Kenyan agricultural AI.
We need all of them.
The chaos of all these new releases, all this model inflation we complained about earlier, it isn't just noise. It is literally the sound of cultural preservation.
That's a great way to put it.
But, you know, the source material actually takes this ecosystem concept even further. It moves from the software of humanity, which is our culture, to the literal hardware.
Right, the physical and digital infrastructure.
Yeah.
Because if the entire world tethers itself to a single foundation model, we create the largest single point of failure in human history.
Let's really map out what that looks like, because we are already integrating AI into critical systems, right? Like power grids are using it to optimize load balancing.
Financial markets are executing high-frequency trades with it.
Right. Logistics companies are routing global shipping. Healthcare systems are using it for triage and diagnostics.
Now imagine if all of those disparate industries are calling the API of one single dominant model.
Just one.
Just one.
Right.
The global ecosystem becomes unimaginably fragile. A single structural flaw could be catastrophic.
Okay, I want to move away from the typical sci-fi metaphors here. We don't need to talk about Skynet.
Fair enough. Let's keep it grounded.
I want you to think about the Gros Michel banana.
Wait, the banana. Okay, I'm listening.
Yeah, stick with me here. Decades ago, the Gros Michel was the only type of banana exported globally. It was an absolute biological monoculture because it was just highly efficient to grow and transport.
Right, it made economic sense.
Exactly. But because every single banana was genetically identical, when the Panama disease fungus emerged, it wiped out the entire global supply almost overnight.
Oh, wow.
The whole system crashed because it had zero diversity.
Okay, the Gros Michel is actually the perfect parallel for a monolithic foundation model. In systems engineering, we constantly look at the trade-off between hyper-efficiency and robustness.
Right.
A single AI running everything is incredibly efficient, until it isn't.
Until the fungus hits.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A zero-day exploit, a novel prompt injection attack, or, a targeted breach by a hostile nation-state. It wouldn't just cause a localized outage. The cascading failures would ripple through the entire global network simultaneously.
So what does this all mean? It means the annoyance we feel when reading the tech news every morning is actually totally misplaced.
Totally
The
misplaced.
fact that we have this sprawling, populated ecosystem of numerous AI models, all built on different architectures, utilizing completely different security protocols, and operating totally independently, that is our defense mechanism.
This raises an important question, though. Think about it from a security perspective. If you're a bad actor trying to cripple a digital economy, how do you attack an infrastructure that is running on 500 different AI models simultaneously?
You can't. You literally can't. The specific bug might take down, say, one open source model, but the hospital down the street that's running on a completely different proprietary architecture, they just keep functioning. The logistics network, using a specialized, locally trained model, they just keep routing trucks.
In network theory, this distributed complexity is the core of system resilience. In fact, the translated text uses the Turkish word dayanıklılık, which captures this perfectly.
Dayanıklılık, I like that. What does it translate to, roughly?
It's essentially resilience. It is the ability of a system to absorb a massive shock and just continue functioning. A monoculture shatters under pressure, but a diverse ecosystem flexes and adapts.
Okay, but let me push back on the practicality of this for a second. Having 500 different AI architectures sounds like an absolute integration nightmare for developers.
It is. It's a headache.
Right. If every company, hospital, and government is using a different model, how do they talk to each other? Isn't the friction of interoperability going to just, slow down human progress?
It undeniably introduces friction, yes. Building APIs to translate between different models, managing multiple subscriptions, dealing with varying levels of latency. It is, by definition, inefficient. But that inefficiency is the premium we pay for insurance.
Ah, I see.
There's a concept called loose coupling in systems engineering. It's where components interact but are not entirely dependent on each other. And that is exactly what stops a localized failure from becoming a complete systemic collapse.
Wow. That fundamentally flips the script on how we should view the current AI landscape.
It really does.
The endless stream of new AI company announcements, the open source community releasing 5 new iterations of a model in a single weekend.
Yeah.
That inflation is actually our greatest security blanket. The chaos is the shield.
Yes, it is the vital, messy process of an ecosystem defending itself against monopoly, both digitally and culturally.
It changes everything about how I perceive the market. Seriously. The next time a startup announces yet another large language model, I'm not going to groan about subscription fatigue.
No.
No. I'm going to view it as a newly discovered species in the digital rainforest. It just adds another layer of redundancy to the grid.
It's a sign of a healthy, thriving, and resilient ecosystem.
Bringing it all back to the core question of our mission today. Why this relentless model inflation? The source material leaves us with a profound thesis.
It really does.
True intelligence, in all its human complexity, cannot have a single form. It cannot have a single owner. And it most certainly cannot have a single undisputed truth.
The moment we allow a singular machine to dictate truth, we effectively end human inquiry. The balance of power, both technical and cultural, relies entirely on distributed intelligence.
This wild, frustrating diversity is our greatest insurance policy as a species. According to the text, it is the only viable path to ensure artificial intelligence remains a collaborative tool rather than an omnipresent master. The second we consolidate for the sake of convenience, the second we agree to just use the one best AI for everything, is the second we surrender our autonomy.
Convenience is so often the Trojan horse for monopoly.
That is a great quote. Convenience is the Trojan horse for monopoly. Which brings us entirely back to you, the listener.
Right.
We started today by validating that overwhelming feeling of endless new options demanding your attention. But now that we've dismantled the mechanics behind it, now that we understand the deep evolutionary necessity of tokenization, diversity, cultural alignment, and network resilience, well, it leaves you with a very personal challenge.
Because this isn't just macroeconomics or global infrastructure theory. This directly applies to your personal workflow and your daily habits.
Exactly. So based on everything we've explored from this source today, how are you curating your own daily diet of AIs?
That's the question.
Are you relying on just one monolithic assistant to draft your emails, answer your research questions, and brainstorm your projects? If you are allowing one single parametric filter to dictate your perspective without even realizing it.
Yeah, you're wearing your glasses.
Right. So is it time for you to embrace the chaos, to step out of the monoculture and start building your own personal ecosystem of diverse, specialized models? A little bit of interface fatigue is a small price to pay to ensure you are still the one doing the critical thinking.
The friction is the point.
The friction is
Yeah.
the point. Keep that in mind the next time you log on. Until next time, keep questioning the filter.